back here with me. We're going to go through the main slate here. We're also going to do a golf video later, and we are going to do a early slate look just shortly for those of you guys who are watching.
Yeah, just to give everybody a update on what's going on the slates tonight. The NBA is doing a two-game NBA slate. Every once in a while, they try something like that. I'm going to play it, but it's definitely different. Hockey is down to a two-game slate, and then we got two, pretty healthy enough baseball slates today. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Healthy enough. You got multiple games of both. We'll attack both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you talk a little? You want to talk a little bit about your sweat last night before we get into?
Yeah, it was fun to have a sweat, and with two games and only one lineup, it's kind of fun or one main lineup, to have a chance to win it. It was a little frustrating because I was watching the game and I knew I was going to play Anthony Davis. I knew I was going to play Vanderbilt. I knew I was going to play Schroeder. And then after Jimmy Butler got announced out, I went with the Caleb Martin, Lowry, and the pretty standard, and the Gabe Vincent with Randall. And just the only problem was Steph had a worst game he's had in the playoffs in 10 years. But it was a fun sweat, and we did talk on the live show, which I appreciated about some people acknowledging it. We talked about how Vanderbilt or Schroeder would basically have to be on Steph all the time because there's nobody else in the Lakers who can even match up defensively with him. And sure enough, not only did that happen, they were on the court all the time together too. So the minutes just were so much beyond the projected minutes for those two. And that was really the best way to win, was to try and play those two guys together, which oddly, a lot of people split. People who did play them, the 10 to 12% or whatever, they didn't play them together hardly at all. So that was a nice little advantage. And I'm also going to be playing the showdown. I'll touch on that one later during live. I did want to make an announcement that I'm actually going to be out most of the day. I have a couple doctor's appointments tomorrow, but I will be good for live tomorrow unless one doctor's thing runs crazy long, which I just don't expect. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do the what's it called, the morning stuff, just because I've got appointments early all the way through the morning.
Is there a day baseball slate tomorrow?
I'm actually, I realized just now as I said that I need to check and see what this. There usually is on a Thursday. Let me see.
I'm planning on being around tomorrow. Next week, I am not going to be around much, if at all. I'll keep you guys updated on that. And I guess that's it. I actually, I played a little baseball last night. I had a couple of fun ones, actually. I was in first in the relay throw for a few minutes, and then the Dodgers played. And I had a couple of good lineups with both Miller Cheapos from that Oakland game.
You double Millered it. It's the Miller's world. We're just
those could have been interesting, but whatever. Baseball's tough. But I'm ready to talk about today. So you want to talk about this
nice.
late
and by the way, late morning slate tomorrow. There's an outside chance I might be able to do a live around 11:30 or something. Whether you're available or not, I can just jump on if you want to. Okay. But it looks like that. I'll just see what the slate looks like tomorrow and if I'm able to make it. All right. But yeah, let's jump into the evening slate. So we've got, this is a game, Sheets, and you would know better than I would because you're there. There's a little bit of weather issues. Any care to wager on what?
I hope not. I hope it doesn't come till later because I didn't bring my car today. I'm gonna have to walk home from work, so I hope it doesn't come till for a few hours at least. But I guess I see it. I didn't see Roth or anything like that. It's supposed to be legit. It's a problem.
I'll say Roth as yellow orange.
It's not good.
Yeah, that's not ideal. So. And part of the problem is I absolutely love Bieber on this slate. I'm not really afraid of going after the Yankees right now. And he would be a guy who I would be prioritizing. I don't think I was going to get to the hitting in this game, although I wouldn't mind. I could see the argument for some Cleveland and stuff. I just don't personally have it as a priority. So I was much.
I'll tell you, I'm not afraid of the Yankees, but I gotta tell you, I'm kind of afraid of Bieber a little bit.
Yeah,
just hasn't really done much. It's that would be my worry. I don't know if I'm gonna get there. I have him on a second tier. I got a whole bunch of guys in a second tier. I have a top two, which we'll get to. I would be a little nervous about Bieber striking upside nowadays. So
It's a little
I don't know if I
worrisome.
can.
Yeah, I actually think that it's more of an aberration than it is an actual trend. I'm just not sure. But that's what I tend to do with guys who are elite, level pitchers. I'm always going to side with the long term until I really get like a half a season. I mean, even last year with Syndergaard, I was still like, no, he can't be. He's got to be better than this. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
He's been shaky, but when that takes the perception of a slate where he would have been 80% owned to 20%, that makes up for it for me. So that's where the way I'm treating it.
Any
right.
interest in the hitting? Any interest in the hitting or not?
Not really. To be completely honest, if you wanted, like, I actually think that Schmidt would almost be in play. The price is so low, and we're just seeing it. 'Cause, like, I actually think both the pitchers are kind of interesting anyway. But I just don't think I can quite get to Cleveland today. Personally, they don't hit enough.
You didn't.
What do you got for the Chicago-Washington game?
Yeah, so I have 3 stacks, and that's what I usually do for the free video. I have like 3 stacks which I'm interested in. I have one obviously just mega chalk one, which we'll talk about later, and then I have 2 others, and one of the 2 others are the Cubs. So I have them as listed as a stack. They're also not they don't project that poorly, and they are not projected to be that highly owned. So that's kind of what I'm kind of looking for. So I like that. And yet on the other hand, I don't mind Irvin as a 4K pitcher either. I don't know if you need it. I don't know if that's asking for it, but he's showing up as a point per dollar play, so I figured I'd bring it up. So I do happen to have the Cubs as one of my stacks I want to deal with.
Yeah, I don't mind. I got to dig a little deeper into Irvin before I make too many comments on it. Because I'm really not entirely sure. There is a little bit of weather in this game as well, and this is always worrisome with the Washington situation. You know what I mean? Like we know that they've had a shaky record at best, but it looks to be a little better than the Yankees. It looks like it does die down. Like maybe even there'd be a delay, but it looks like it would die down. The Cubs have been the 3rd best offense in baseball this season. It's kind of amazing for a team that is just considered to be nothing. I do think that they are completely viable today. I think all sides of this, Stroman, Irvin, Cubs. The only thing I know I'm not doing in this game is the Nationals. I just have too much respect for Stroman. And I do like Stroman for what it's worth too. I think that it's an interesting Stroman sort of trending a little bit more in the right direction. The problem with him is you really don't have like the immense strikeout upside with him either. It is a good matchup for it, but it's kind of an uninspiring pitching slate with or kind of uninspiring for both Bieber and him, even though as real life pitchers, I still think they're both excellent. All right. Who is a pretty, do you have the Boston one next or the other one? You got Toronto.
I do. I have Boston.
Boston, so the other one. Sorry about that. What do you got for Toronto Boston sheets?
Oh, so your lead-in was going to be for a different game?
It was for a different game. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, we'll get there. Yeah, I like Toronto as the second non-Coors stack that I like the most, and that's usually the case. I think Toronto usually looks pretty good anyway. Boston's a good park. Pavetta is someone that if you don't get good Pavetta, it's somebody you want to have stacks against. So that's what I like. I like Toronto. I didn't quite get to Manoah just because I have other options, but 7,200 is reasonable, I guess. So that's where I'm at. I figure I'd get your opinion on Manoah and take the easy way out and just say I like Toronto.
Yeah, I am going to play some Manoah tonight. It's 52 degrees. You've got wind blowing in from center field, about 8 miles an hour. If it stays like that, I do think that it's still Boston, so it's still a good hitter's park. But I'm still choosing, and maybe I'm being a little stubborn on this, to be honest with you, that I'm still choosing to believe that Manoah is still a good pitcher. And by the way, everybody wrote him off in the last one because he gave up 1 home run in the first inning, and he was really good after that. He just gave up a home run in the first inning. That's what happens. And he wasn't totally controlling the zone either. He pitched great against the Yankees the time before that, and then had really one terrible inning against Tampa Bay and one terrible inning against Detroit, and that's sort of been his season. I'm okay with still taking shots. I don't have the fear of the Red Sox that I have in the past. They're not a good candidate to strike out a bunch, which is a little bit frustrating. But the bottom of that order, Casas, Valdez, McGuire, like this is not like the strong power lineup. Maybe the idea is more you want to take pitchers against the Red Sox when they're not in Boston. But I have them on there today, and I'm just wondering where the ownership ends up on Toronto, because my plan was to completely fade them as chalk, as one of the chalk stacks, and I'm not seeing them being that chalky. So it's really going to come down to what their ownership is. I do have again, I don't always love stacking into the win. There's guys like, George Springer that has done nothing even remotely close to earning this price tag for him. Like he's 5,200 on DraftKings and 2,800 on FanDuel. He looks terrible. He looks like a totally different player. Of course, it's a hitter. He could snap out of it any time, but he looks like clueless at the plate every time I've watched him this year, and the numbers would back that up. So I actually think he keeps killing on my Toronto stacks, and maybe I'm not going to let him do that one today. But I do think this is not ideal hitting conditions, and it is a great matchup against Pivetta with these Toronto guys, but Pivetta can be good enough at times. So I was going to fade them as chalk. Now that they're not going to be, I'm still deciding what I'm going to do. They're definitely a team that's, on my list. It's hard to ignore a team with a 5-run total that has the most power in baseball. So that's pretty much where I'm at on that one. You got now do we go to the White Sox and Twins? Is
that the one you were going to lead into?
It was just leading in just to say that, well, we don't have the strikeout guys, but here's a guy who we do have. And Dylan Cease is going to end up a lot more popular than I think he looks like he's going to be tonight. I think he's pretty clearly I don't know if I say it's the top, but 10 miles an hour wind blowing in from left field, 48 degrees. Now that can affect the pitchers too. Minnesota, sort of an up and down lineup, but getting healthy, although it didn't seem to matter last night. They definitely destroyed a lot of people as the secondary chalk. I'm going to be very high on Cease tonight as of right now. And I don't mind Varland either. I know it's, kind of a weird play, but we're talking about spending down at pitching. And by the way, if you spent down at pitching yesterday, you probably had a good day. I had a deep run with the Bryce Miller, not the Mason Miller yesterday.
Double Miller.
Double Millers were the way to go. It's the Miller world. But I kind of like Varland here. Again, Joe Ryan was really good against the White Sox last night. The White Sox are just until they start showing they can actually hit a right-handed pitcher. I don't know why we don't just keep loading these guys up against them. Varland in his season debut, pitched six good innings with 8 Ks against the Yankees. I'm totally okay with both the pitchers in this game. And sorry not to have more. It's a first look thing, so I don't have more of a strong take on some of these. But I do think both these pitchers are excellent, and I like the lack of hitting conditions. So I think they're both excellent options. I think Varland and you could do a weird thing with the Varland and the guy you mentioned before, the 4K Irvin. Once I do a little more digging on him, assuming that he's going to pitch 75 pitches and maybe get a little creative with it.
So here's my comment. I mean, there's a theme I think of today. What pitcher? There are pitchers here that you might be worried about. I don't know. So you have Bieber, who has you would think historically good stuff, who hasn't done anything. You have Cease, who in his last 3 starts has just been bad. You have Nola from the early slate, which that could be another totally discussion. You have Ohtani coming off of giving up 5 runs to Oakland, and it's an interesting situation. Now you could make, I don't want to say excuses or whatever. I mean, Cease certainly, his last 2 starts against Tampa is certainly not ideal. And against Baltimore, that's not ideal either. But, I guess his last start against Minnesota, he was better. But it's not like he's 7K. I mean, he's 10-3. And I guess it's what might keep all these guys' ownership somewhat low. Is I think there's legit question marks. Now, the one thing that he does have is 2 things. Number one, he's got strikeout upside all the time, and he's got 100 pitches. You know what I mean? So you can count on that. So listen, I have him as part of my top pairing right now, but I don't think it comes without risk, and it's not like Minnesota risk. It's just more Cease risk. So, but I do have him as my number 2 overall right.
Yeah, I mean, and as of right now, he's all these questionable guys so far. He's the one I feel I feel pretty good that he's going to bounce back tonight. But it's everybody you feel a little nervous about. All right. I guess I'll go real quick on the the Baltimore Kansas City game. I think Baltimore is the number one stack on the slate. I think that they'll get some ownership. I will probably be one of those people playing them. One thing I like about playing Baltimore is even when they're chalky, that they always, because of the way their positions are and their pricing and the guys at the bottom of the order being so expensive, they just are. There's so many ways to stack them that feel good to me. So you also have great hitting weather in Kansas City today, 70 degrees, which is really, really nice. And I'm very, very high on Baltimore. And I have to say, I think that this Royals offense is going to start getting better now that they have all the guys. Melendez is playing every day now, or we assume he will. And then Perez back, who hit 2 home runs last night. You've got the cheap options down at the bottom. So I actually have Baltimore as a priority. And I actually like the other side of this, even though in other times of the year, I would have played Gibson in this matchup. I actually don't mind the KC other side of it. So the KC for value and the Baltimore as a main stack feels pretty good to me.
I guess.
You don't like it?
I always say that when I start to stack against Greinke. You know what I mean? Like, I guess.
It's worked the last 3 times, right? I think
it has. It has.
Yeah.
It has. I mean, maybe even 4 times. So yeah, Baltimore could probably knock him around. They'll be owned, like you said, the way construction works, it's fine. So yeah, they're going to be on my top 4. And then I'll probably lose. But yes, I totally agree with you, and I don't like either of the pitchers.
To your point about Greinke, though, the part that is frustrating about stacking against him that I've run into a lot is he doesn't walk a lot of people. So it speaks sometimes maybe more to maybe you want to do your 3-man stack against him or something, because he gives up a lot of home runs, but he doesn't really walk people as much. And you kind of would like to get those walks to keep the lineup moving in general when you're stacking the team. Just want to throw that out there. All right, and then why don't you start off with your thoughts on Ohtani and then what you're going to do in this Angels?
He's not my top guy.
Whoa.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him in my top pairing right now. I don't know exactly. I mean, he's 11-4. You know what I mean? He's 11-4. St. Louis is not bad, and although their record certainly is going to argue with me on it. But yeah, I wouldn't make Ohtani my top play. He's just expensive, and there are other guys. That's what I feel more comfortable with Cease, by the way, than Ohtani, given the matchup and all that stuff. So,
interesting. Mm-hmm.
That's where I am, and Mikolas is he's another guy that people make money on that are not named Eric Caber. So people can play him and they'll win. I'll play him, I'll lose. So he is part of that like long second tier of pitchers that I could squint and put in. I promise you, when I run SaberSim, I'll get a couple with him. I'll probably just leave it in there, but I'm certainly not hand building with him.
Yeah, I'm actually all over both the pitchers here.
I'll play even Mikolas. Okay.
Yeah, I actually think the Mikolas thing, like if we're going to talk about the Varland and guys like Irvin, there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't be playing Mikolas ahead of those guys. The Angels are a better team on paper than they are in real life. There is a couple of tough bats in the top of the order, obviously, but there's a lot of weakness down at the bottom. And Mikolas is going to prove to people that he's actually a much better pitcher. He showed signs of it last time out. He was really, really good in that game against San Francisco. In general, the kind of pitcher I like to roster who doesn't walk a ton of people has walked a few more this year than he usually does. And 6,100 is just too cheap. I also like Ohtani, but one of my favorite things is neither of these teams have ever faced these pitchers. And I'm always a big sucker for that being a big advantage for the pitcher. So they've never seen each other before. The Angels never seen Mikolas, and Ohtani's never seen St. Louis, I don't believe. So I'm into both of these guys, and I feel a little more conviction about them than I do about some of the other spots. It is nice enough hitting, like considering the time of year or whatever. It's 67 degrees in St. Louis. So if there's any negative against that, but you do have a 7.5 total. I mean, even the Angels with an under 4 total for 6,100 Mikolas, who has a leash and can work through innings quickly. I think he's a really strong play, and I think he's actually going to be lower owned than he should be. I think he should be 25% on this. I really do. I just think the Angels get a little bit too much respect because of the names like Ohtani and Trout. I don't think that's enough of a reason for me not to play a pitcher against them.
So listen, dude, I'm not hallucinating. Every time we analyze the Colorado slate, Freeland is pitching. Okay,
it feels like it, doesn't it?
It's bordering on ridiculous. Okay,
Yep.
Where am I when Arena pitches? Where am I when Marquez pitches? Where am I when Gomber pitches? I'm like nowhere. I don't know. Wherever I'm staring, K. Freeland. Now, last time they got to him, they finally got him. If I'm not mistaken, which team was it? Who got him? Somebody got him. I think Arizona or Philly. One of them got him. I forget who it was. But they left him in for 90 pitches. I will say that. So Milwaukee's going to look like the best play. They're going to look like the chalkiest play. And as usual, I'm probably just not going to play it. I do prefer the Colorado side of this to the Milwaukee side. But I have Colorado probably a little below stuff like Toronto. So probably going to be off of this game.
So this is interesting. I'm trying to wrap my head around exactly like I've got to do some deep diving and figure out the exact run totals in the games that Freeland pitches, because I mean going back for a while now, and the weird part is like you look at the runs he gives up: 3 earned runs, 4 earned runs. He had the 7 earned run game against Pittsburgh at home, but 2 against St. Louis, 0 against Washington, 0 against San Diego. It for the fact that every team against him always has an implied total of 6.5 or 7. He actually does a pretty good job. And I'm are we excited to yes, it was a bad day yesterday for Milwaukee. I wouldn't I don't want to not go play them because of it, but I don't know if this is the right thing to do. And at the ownership, they're going to be it's really hard for me to sell myself on it, especially because I sort of took this stance on Freeland that, he's just a little bit better than everybody thinks. Not that he's amazing or anything. He just is a little bit better than everybody thinks. He has to pitch all these games in Coors, and maybe he only pitches in Coors. Maybe all those guys only pitch on the road or something. Feels like he pitches every Coors slate. I would say that the Rockies are more the team I like. Lauer with a lot of off-speed stuff that's not going to work as well in the thin air. It is, for what it's worth, you have 2 lefties. It is a really nice day and 74 degrees in Colorado, but you have 2 lefties and 10-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from left field. If you're trying to find a reason to fade games, these are things you should be looking at, because that does suppress the righty home run upside a little bit, just a little bit. You know what I mean? It's still Colorado. It's going to basically means it's going to travel basically as far as it normally would. You know what I mean? But 10 miles an hour blowing back into the hitters is definitely a little bit of a downgrade. I still like the Rockies, and I am going to not have any full stacks of Milwaukee, but I will have potentially some pieces like Brousseau. I'm considering Brian Anderson, Luke Voigt, more the bottom guys, not so much the top. I guess Contreras would be one that you consider, but it does. I do think that you've got some excuses to fade this game, and I like the idea of making Baltimore my primary, along with maybe the Rockies, who are actually going to be much lower owned than the Brewers, and I think that's an interesting route to go on this slate. All right. What are your thoughts on this? So Logan Gilbert has got to be your guy then.
Yeah.
All right. I'm in on it too.
Yeah. I like the Gilbert Cease combination. That's my that was my initial idea. And I also do have Cease as part of the Bow Wow tier. Probably not going to end up doing it, but I have him no worse than any of those other 5Ks that we talked about between Varland and Irvin and all this other stuff. So just to throw him into the mixture.
Yep,
and that's pretty much what I
got. We're still trying to figure out who Sears is. It's really just that one game that sort of really stands out. Just the 11 strikeouts for a guy who we don't think, in general, just doesn't have good strikeout stuff. It was.
He should have come around by now. I mean, the Yankees were working with him. You know what I mean? I don't think he's going to be much.
Yeah, I mean, no, and he just doesn't strike people out. It's just he doesn't have missed pitches, swing and miss pitches. I too like Logan Gilbert, and I am going to go and say that I guess my third stack that I will be fully stacking will be Seattle. I am totally okay with attacking Steers. I don't love that it's in Oakland. I don't love that it's 57 degrees. I don't love that there's some rain, which we'll have to revisit later today. But if you can get there, I think trying to get different off the Milwaukee stuff, the teams that stand out, the Baltimores, the Seattles, and the Rockies. I mean, you're still got cores, obviously, but I just don't want to play Milwaukee specifically. And then I think KC and Toronto would be my next two that I would look at, but I do like the Baltimore.
Yeah, you just got to play Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore's got to be it. Yeah.
Although unfortunately, they did score like 1 million runs last night.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
How many actually?
I think 11.
Okay, 11's up.
It was 11, I think, but it was weird. It was like 11, but it was almost, and they were unowned, and they was like almost all two guys. Like it was really weird. It was like Mountcastle had like 15 million RBIs. Honestly, partly this game is how much I want to stack Seattle is going to depend on whether or not Julio Rodriguez is in the lineup. Seattle looked completely inept last night, and I understand that Mason Miller is a high prospect and he's good and everything. But I like them against lefties in general. They've got Suarez, France, Teoscar, Pollock. All these guys are really good against lefties historically, and I'm very, very happy to go ahead and play them when no one else, or when most others are not going to be. But still, Baltimore and the Rockies right out just a little bit ahead, and even the Royals are right there with them for me. So that's where I'm at. For pitching, I know I like the Gilbert thing. I have Gilbert, some mix of Gilbert, Cease, Manoah, Ohtani, and Mikolas, with potentially using a Varland Mikolas type of thing. I'm gonna have to do a little more digging, and also I guess I'll let the weather even help me decide if it's even risky at all for any delay in some of these games. Maybe I go a different direction. And Gilbert may actually, oddly enough, in Oakland, even though it's California and it's May now, Oakland actually does have a legitimate potential ugliness. It just looks like it's going to be consistently raining out there. Anything to finish up before we jump over to we get out of here and go over to golf?
Nope.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody, and we'll see you guys for live later and live shortly, I guess, for the early slate. Good luck, everybody.